All right, everybody, hopefully you're being a little bit more confident about graphing, a little bit more confident about using the inverse property. The inverse property is really important, being able to get things from one side of the equal sign to the other. Now, between equals, right, the equations and the inequality signs, there's one difference, one major difference that's going to maybe be a little bit of a stumbling block for you. Okay, we have been doing inverse property. We've learned that. Inverse property, if we do multiplication, the inverse of that is division. So multiplication, the inverse of that is division. Adding is subtracting, and vice versa on all of those. And so if you see something like this, hopefully you've gotten to the point that you can say, oh, I need to multiply. All right? And if you see something like this, hopefully you've gotten to the point where you can say, oh, I need to divide. Okay? Now, multiplying and dividing are not the hard parts of the inequality. All right? There's one little thing that always seems to trip everybody up, and that's when you do this with a negative sign. Sorry, I had to draw a blank there for a second. When you do this operation, this inequality, this inverse, you have to change the sign. All right? Before it was just an equal sign, and probably you could do this pretty easy. But now we have to change the sign, and that's the only thing that's really different between the orders of operation with an equation or an equal sign and the order of operations with an inequality. So if I was to do this, this is x over negative 4. I need to do negative 4 and now multiply it like so. Now, this goes away, and most of the students that I have would just multiply it, and then they would be like, okay, I'm done. Now, then I always have to remind them, you need to change the sign. Oh yeah, I got to change that sign around, and probably before Algebra 1, you've seen it before, and it was hard for you then at that point. So now that I took a negative sign, now remember, this is only for multiplication and division, and it's only when it's a negative sign. So I have an x, I flip the sign because I took a negative across that side, okay? And so now I have a negative 12. Okay, and so once again, we did that for multiplication, right? And so now if I divide like that, I took another negative across the inequality, I flip the sign, and it's negative 2. All right? So, when you multiply or divide a negative across the inequality, you have to flip the sign. It's one of those things that you're just going to have to memorize that you need to do it. Okay? I haven't come up with some little remembering thing, some little clue for this one yet. So this is one of those you just have to memorize, that when you have a negative sign, and you multiply and divide it across the inequality, you have to change the sign. All right, so hopefully you can be able to get that down and be able to be an awesome person at the inverse operation with inequalities.